Hi guys, and welcome here to my 2019 AFL ladder prediction analysis. We're looking at my ladder prediction and basically analysing each team, the reason for putting them there, and how I think they're going to go this season. On top of my Brownlow Coleman and the sack race for each of the managers, as well as the finals. In 18th, I have the Gold Coast Suns, as expected, probably the worst team in the competition. I have them only picking up 3 wins, one fewer than they did last year. They've lost a lot of players, have inadequately replaced them, and they don't have much experience in the team and a lot of youth, and that kind of mix hasn't done many teams many favours. And perhaps they're on the rebuild, and perhaps you might see a bit of resurgence from them in 2020, but I have the Gold Coast in 18th. In 17th, I have the Carlton Blues, a team that will cause some problems this season. 5 wins for them, 3 more than they did last year. Again, cause some problems. They've got a young team, but a young team that has about a couple of years of experience, as opposed to the Gold Coast Suns, who don't really have those years under their belt. Fremantle in 16th, a team that will definitely be one to watch out for, a team that can definitely push for those top 9 spots. Realistically, I don't think Ross Lyon is the coach to take them to that one step further of premiership finals contenders. Been mainly focused on defence, and they've been blessed with some good defences across his tenure, but at the moment, their weakest period, and I think that's where Fremantle will frail, where a lot of people sort of name and blame is in that attack, with the attack is stronger than the defence is weaker, so I think we might see that be the downfall of Fremantle this season. Geelong in 15th, that's the shock of the picks, followed by the Bulldogs in 14th. These two teams, again, will lack consistency. Geelong in 15th, they've got one of the good teams in the league, but again, they can be plagued by injury, and perhaps their depth isn't really there. As for the Bulldogs, I would put them as your sort of bang average list in terms of players and personnel. They're just not cut out for the top of reaches, and I think you'll find that there'll be weeks when they're really good and there'll be weeks when they're really bad, and I think that's sort of been, even in that year where they won the grand final, they only finished 7th. So I think these two teams, even Port Adelaide, will struggle to put together good runs of form. As for Port Adelaide, they've got one of the better teams in the league. I don't think they have any of the players that can really take them that one step further. I have them sort of bridging the gap between 13th and 14th. Fortunately, that won't be enough to climb them up the tail towards those final positions. In 12th, I have St Kilda, perhaps another big shock of my predictions. Have them with 10 wins. Again, we'll struggle to put together a decent performance, but I think that's kind of the year that we're going to see from St Kilda. A year where there might be some trouble in trying to gather performances up. Of course, losing Rewalt and a lot of their older players has hit them hard. Signing Dan Hanbury, I think, is a good piece of finals experience that perhaps the St Kildan team was lacking. In 11th, the Brisbane Lions, the dark horses of the competition, a team that can probably push towards finals but won't do it this season, purely because I think you'll find that they will get a bit fatigued at times during the season, and I think you'll see them peak around about the bye period. In 10th, North Melbourne surprised everyone last season with a 9th place finish. The season will drop 1 place lower, but again will have a very competitive year. I have them actually top of the table around the 9-8th round mark, so perhaps the dark horses as well have that good mix of youth and experience, and for me, have what I'd call your ideal list. In 9th, you have Sydney, who will just miss out on finals this season. I think they won't have as big of a fall as Geelong. I think they've got a good enough coach and good enough players to make a push for finals. As we move into the top 8, in 8th position, Hawthorn, narrowly missing out on dropping out of the top 8. They came in on the final round, as you can see by the up single. They'll have a good year. Alistair Clarkson's a good enough coach. He'll be the main reason they go into the finals. Melbourne in 7th. Again, a team that have a lot of youth, perhaps. Again, that'll probably be their downfall. GWS, a team that sell a lot of their players and, again, have inadequately replaced. I wouldn't be surprised if them and Sydney switch places. But I have them in 6th purely because they always seem to find a way, the Giants. In 5th, Essendon, one of the better teams to miss out on the top 4. A team that has lacked inconsistency, has had a lot of inconsistency for a long time. Whether or not they will finish 5th this season will all come down to whether or not they have a good start to the season. And that, I think, is going to be one of the main things for this season, is good starts. Your top 4, Adelaide, West Coast, Collingwood, Richmond. Adelaide under, and this is making sure they don't have any injuries, because again, we saw last year that injuries cost the Crows this spot, and perhaps the most disappointing team of 2018. Perhaps couldn't use that as a bit of a mental, but I think making finals will be a success for the Crows, but have them perhaps over succeeding and finishing 4th. Were top coming into the last 3 rounds, as you can see, dropped off a bit. The Eagles, last year's premiers, I don't see them beating Richmond or Collingwood this season. I think you'll find that the Eagles won't be the... they may struggle with a grand final hangover, but I think, again, they've got the experience to bounce back and have a very competitive year. Collingwood in 2nd, again, in my opinion, perhaps the best list in the league, but again, injuries could plague them. We saw it last year, they had a lot of injuries and still managed to finish 2nd, so there's a good chance they could overtake Richmond. I've got Richmond in 1st, but I wouldn't be surprised if they fall down the table. They got Tom Lynch, who may disturb that forward line that has so successfully done them this season. So that is my table. Hawthorn, Melbourne, GWS, Essendon, Adelaide, West Coast, Collingwood, Richmond make up the top 8. My Brownlow suggestion is going to be from... will be Adam Treloar from Collingwood. I think he can make a very good year for Collingwood if he keeps fitness up. And here's my prediction for Brownlow medal. As you will see, we will now move on to the Coll medal, which I think will go to Ben Brown of North Melbourne or Jack Riewoldt of Richmond. I'm leaning towards Ben Brown because you'll find that Riewoldt will struggle to perhaps, especially with those 2, with Tom Lynch joining, perhaps makes it a bit more difficult for them to balance out their forward line. One of their small forwards has to come out to make way for Tom Lynch. As for coaches that could be under pressure, I think it has to be said that the Carlton and Gold Coast coaches should be pretty safe. Brendan Bolton, in my opinion, should be sacked. I think Carlton perhaps need a more experienced head. Someone like Mick Malthouse would do them well. Ross Lyon, in my opinion, is the most under pressure coach of the competition. Fremantle have a team that can definitely push towards the 10-9 places. But again, as we've seen, he does well with defensively good teams, and Fremantle just aren't that at the moment. They shipped a lot of goals last year. They cannot allow that to happen this year. The Luke Beveridge of the Western Bulldogs, is pretty much safe thanks to his 2016 grand final victory. But you'll see that if he doesn't perform over these next 2 years, and I'm saying a grand final, a finals appearance next year should be considered the goal for the Bulldogs. Ken Hinkley, again, another under pressure coach, put later to be underperforming. They need to get performing back to that preliminary final height they got up to a few years ago. Alan Richardson needs to perform with St Kilda, needs to begin to start performing. St Kilda have about an average of 26 to 25 aged in their prime, need to start getting a move on. And last but not least, for under pressure coaches, is John Worsfold. The Essendon team needs to start performing. Don't perform this season, then perhaps that golden generation of Essendon that Essendon have so been hoping will bring them some glory. So that brings an end to the ladder predictions. Let's move on to the finals now. Week 1 of finals, Richmond versus Adelaide. I think Richmond at the MCG are almost unstoppable. Essendon, Hawthorn. Essendon's inconsistency will lack them here, and Alistair Clarkson's a good amount of coaching ability in final situations will get Hawthorn over the line, eliminating the Bombers. GWS, Melbourne, we'll see again. Melbourne will again see the lower ranked of the two teams go through. GWS, I think, will struggle for consistency this year, but will put together, those sort of short bursts of wins of 3. Put them to 6, but I think in the finals they will struggle. Collingwood and the Eagles. I think Collingwood at the MCG is almost unstoppable. The West Coast Eagles have proven to be a force to reckon. That's why I'm putting the Eagles through, and Collingwood will have to win it out in a semi-final showdown. Adelaide versus Hawthorn. Adelaide, if fully fit, will easily win this game against Hawthorn. I think what you'll find is that Adelaide is one of the best teams in the competition and matched up against anyone, and they can beat anyone. Collingwood, Melbourne. This could potentially be one of the games of the season, but again, I see Collingwood winning. Again, I see Melbourne struggling in the finals. So last year in the preliminary where they got swept off their feet by a very good Eagles team. They'll be hoping not to have that happen there, but I think they did well to get through the GWS game. We've seen it a lot. They really have struggled to back up good results. In the preliminary final, we have Richmond, Collingwood. Do Richmond fail again in the finals? No, they will learn from their mistakes. We've talked about having a plan A and a plan B is something that was the big downfall for them. They had their plan A was their plan B. I think they'll learn from their mistakes, as Damien Hardwick tends to do. So Richmond will go through the grand final. West Coast, Adelaide. West Coast are very good at in Perth, but I reckon Adelaide will get over the line here purely because you will see that West Coast are very good against MCG opponents in their home, but Adelaide are, in my opinion, one of the only teams in the league that, whether or not they're home or away, will not struggle. In the grand final, we have a replay of the 2017 grand final between Richmond and Adelaide. Whether or not this will be the grand final, only time will tell. I'll have a mid-season review. We will go over these results, maybe make a few selections that perhaps will question these ones. But for the time being, I reckon Adelaide will again topple Richmond. We've seen it with the Eagles, where they lost in the 2015 grand final at the MCG and then came back in 2018 and won. They lost in the 2017, will come back in 2019 and win, and Richmond will again miss out on the premiership. For me personally, Richmond and Adelaide are the two best teams in the competition. That is why I've picked them for this competition. If you want to pause at any moment to have a look at some of the results, I will just quickly go through them now. And that will bring an end to today's episode. The AFL season starts this Thursday. I will hopefully be putting up a first week prediction on Wednesday and a review on Monday. Thank you so much for watching this video, and please subscribe and leave a like.